Hello, Upset family. Welcome to the Upset Podcast. Happy Sunday to all of you. And you already know I'm not alone. I've got the crew with me. Let's bring them on at this time. Hello, everybody.
What up?
Family. Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes.
Yes. How about that? Yes. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Oh, joy.
Three of you out there then.
Yeah, I tell you.
We'll get you back to the festivities soon enough, Tyler. Don't worry.
You got a little attitude just
I
now.
know, right?
I really just want to see halftime.
That is just that is so weak right there for people who just want to watch the halftime show.
Yeah, it's all about the commercials, and then to me, the last few minutes of the game. That's where.
Well, I want you to. I will be signing off promptly at the sign-off time because I am with family and friends, and we are watching the game. I am broadcasting from an undisclosed location.
Yeah,
looks like you're out in the woods.
That's because I don't want y'all to see what's behind that outside.
No, that's cool. That's cool. We recognize that, hey, our podcast falls on Sundays where big events are happening during big times, but we couldn't resist this opportunity to be with all of you. So hello to our audience watching. Let us know if you're watching.
Tried harder.
We got someone upset on the upset already. The first few minutes, upset about the upset right now, actually. So, but no, it's also Super Bowl tonight. But tomorrow there's a pretty big day for some. Consider it a big day. Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Valentine's Day, Day of Love. Some of us are uncomfortable.
Or as it is often abbreviated, VD.
Venereal disease? What?
No, Valentine's Day.
Have mercy.
Come on, Justin.
Because I'm single, I'll go out and buy my own box of candy.
No, you see, just because you said that now, somebody's gonna be asking.
One time I preached this, right? And who came up to me were the blind, the lame, the deaf. That's exactly who came up to me.
Hey, but listen, the good segue, they may have a good bank account.
I know,
Social Security, disability.
That's the irony of it. We have.
Hey, I'm just kidding. I don't want anybody to say she's talking about me because I'm disabled.
No, she's not
no, yes. I think our audience knows you well enough, Marlene. You're not gonna get that label. But we're excited. We know everyone wants to get to this. We don't want to impede anyone, particularly Tally, from getting back to Super Bowl festivities tonight. So we're gonna jump into our topic because it is a good one. It is a good one. So I'm just letting you know now, if you're gonna leave promptly at 6:30, please come back and watch it because you're not gonna want to miss the information that we are sharing tonight. This could be life-changing, not just for right now and you, but generations to come. All right.
Yeah.
So GP, I kind of set it up. Now you take it away and let them know what we're talking about tonight.
Today we are talking about Black wealth. And so can you do us a favor if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube and share this stream, even if you don't rock with us for the whole episode. But as Tasha said, this will be a life-changing episode. Statistics show that the median wealth of Black households in the U.S. is about $25,000. Meanwhile, the number in Caucasian households is about $190,000.
Have mercy.
So there's a large gap between white wealth and Black wealth. And so if the trend continues, according to research, if we keep going the way we're moving, by the year 2053, the Black net worth number will be 0. Right. So it's a crisis.
Wow.
And so today we are honored to have Joseph Nyamwange. He is a powerful young man who is on a mission to liberate us. And so, Joseph, welcome to the Upset Podcast.
Welcome, Joseph.
What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody?
Let everyone know who you are, what you're about, and let us know your story.
Yeah, Joe Nyamwange. I am, first off, let me just thank you, man. I'm honored to be on the Upset Podcast. Big fan of the work you guys are doing. But yeah, Joe Nyamwange, I am the founder of Nymwange Investments, also Nymwange Foundation. Look, one of the areas that I'm really passionate about is seeing our people win, specifically winning with money. The whole model that we build, or that we try to achieve, is really helping folks build a financial legacy that they could be proud of. For years and for generations, we have been struggling. We've been playing from behind. And I never felt it was God's design, especially for people of color, to be losing with money. And it started from my personal story. Back in 2015, I found myself $100,000 in debt, negative net worth. I was miserable at my job. I had the passion to do a lot of good work, but I never had the means to it, man. And I made a commitment to God. I said, God, if you could deliver me from this, if you could get me out of this economic slavery, I'll promise I'll commit my life's work to ensuring that people that look like me can win with money. And so that's what we've done, man. We're excited to help. We built programs around it, and we look forward to blessing more and more families.
Awesome.
Amen.
Oh, I don't care. He said, look like me. Joe, we look alike. I just want we still got a little bit of hair on, but as long as we look alike, I can learn from
trending
you.
that way, though. I'm trending that way, man.
I mean, Joe, look, I mean, this is a pleasure. I've never met you, but I've heard so many things about you, and I have the feeling that somehow or another this could be life-changing for me.
Yeah.
But how does a person go from a $100,000 in debt to being a person who has assets over $1 million? The only way my assets will be over $1 million is if I move to a second floor apartment over a bank. Nobody got that. Nobody got that.
I'm with you. I watched Money Heist the other day, so I'm with you.
No, nobody got that. It's okay.
We got it.
Yeah. Look, guys, I think, for me personally, the first thing is I needed to change my mindset. Like, I had to make a shift. Like, you have to make the declaration to say, hey, look, you're no longer going to be operating in poverty. But more importantly, you're going to realize that, we serve a God who's that big. And a lot of times we limit God. I mean, we may do well from a spiritual perspective. Like, we think God can do the miracles, but when it comes to finances, we almost kind of look the other way around. And so the first thing for me, honestly, Tally, was understanding I had to make the mindset shift. Secondly, man, I had to get the information. And unfortunately for me during that time, there was so much data around the world, so much content. There's real estate, there's stocks, there's all these other things. And I just had to do a lot of research. I had to do a lot of digging, and I had to learn a lot. What I saw was missing in the marketplace was there was nothing that really put everything whole picture for me, that also took into account the systemic challenges that African Americans face. Like nothing really empathized with that. And most importantly, that nothing also never really pointed me towards doing God's work while building wealth. And so I think that's what kind of resulted in me creating kind of our FLA program. But yeah, man, it came down to getting the information. And the biggest takeaway that I remember was I had to make a mindset shift from being a consumer to becoming an owner. And the more assets you own and the more things that you do that are of value, man, the things that God can do, man, are extraordinary. And so that's kind of how we made that shift in 7 years. And it was work, man. It was sacrifice. But me and my wife, we leaned in, and now today, we're in a much better financial place. We still got ways to go, but we did some really cool stuff.
Man, that is awesome. Thank you for telling us your story. There's a quote that says, every person is just a name until you know their story. So we're about to jump into this discussion, and we're going to ask our special guest, Brother Joe, to turn up his mic just a little bit. And our first question is, given the wide gaps that we see, the disparities that we see between blacks and whites in America, what factors led to this reality?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. And then, look, I've been pondering on this for a while. I think this thing is so much deeper than where we are today that kind of led us to kind of where we are. I think if you just take in context to our history, one of the things that we did not have the opportunity to do was to be owners. Think about it. When you were a slave, you were owned by somebody, all right? And so you do that for hundreds of years, where you literally work, and everything that you do is benefiting the wealth of, in this particular case, white people, all right? And so you do that and mind you, they're getting free labor from you. Once slavery was over, right? If you study kind of what life was like during even the Jim Crow era and post, a lot of people were still denied the rights of ownership, right? Just the Jim Crow laws in itself. Like, you couldn't own stuff. So there were certain inventions that were happening because we couldn't have patents. Someone else was getting the credit for it. So you go through years of being told you're 3/5 of a human, you can't own, right? That becomes problematic. And then so as you even get past that, you start thinking about kind of the predatory lending or the role that banks played. They were not giving loans to African Americans to purchase homes. Think about it. One of the largest things that equate to net worth comes back to you owning a house. And so people of color were denied the rights to get loans because of either, and they would look at, say, based on geographical locations, they'll go to urban cities. And instead of giving them bank loans to start a business, to own a home, you had some of these other folks who would give these payday loans cash with something astronomical amount of interest. So it kept people in a hole. So you kind of add all these compounded things over us was problematic. The other part that I'd probably add too, man, is just the information. Like, hear me, the information never really made it through. Why? Even when Black people became wealthy, if you told people you were wealthy, you were killed. Like, think about that. Like, even post-slavery, we had a generation of Black millionaires that were scared to talk about their wealth because if they did, mobs would literally kill them.
Wow.
Hence, if you noticed it with Black Wall Street, what happened, why they became such a threat is that community started becoming more wealthy than white communities. And eventually things started getting crazy and they destroyed it. And so that's why a lot of Black millionaires kept quiet, with the exception of Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first one who started stunting what she had. And that's why she's kind of known as the first Black millionaire. But the information just didn't pass. And so here we find ourselves in 2022 with minimal ownership. And because we have no ownership and we never have the information, we continue to live in a cycle of economic slavery. And while we may not be shackled physically, what we don't realize is that the us being economically deprived or not having the ability to own actually puts us in this rat hole where we're still making money, right, for other people that don't look like us, while we're still stuck working at jobs we hate, doing it for a long period of time. So I think that's kind of how we got to where we are in terms of the wealth gap.
Wow.
You know, Joseph, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on post World War II. I think one of the biggest projects that had to do with getting homes for the veterans was not far from Philadelphia. It's called Levittown, and they built those homes there specifically for veterans who had GI Bill, examples for them to come and purchase a home. However, Black GIs weren't given the same privilege. And so, that kind of leads to just blatant racism.
Sure.
And we're talking about a vet now, served along with his white brother, in the war, his life on the line, and then he comes home and he's denied simply because he's Black. Had nothing to do with whether he was a soldier or not. And then another thing I want you to comment on is these harmful narratives about Blacks in America. Lazy, unintelligent, all of these things have been brought before us through various mediums, and even with our government. Our government has been a part of that, that presentation of what Blacks are in the worth, even in, post World War II. So I think that some of that, the cultural values, the advertising, and even wealthy athletes and entertainers sometimes play a part in that as well. And it gets complicated. There are a lot of mitigating circumstances. So what are your comments? What are your comments on?
So look, there's Chuck, there's always been systemic challenges in our community. I mean, what you called out specifically as it relates to the GI Bill and veterans, Black veterans not getting it, that is absolutely true. There were also other economic programs, specifically when America was moving westward, where families were getting free loans, were getting grants to buy homes, but Black people were denied. Like,
wow.
I mean, you start peeling back the onions. All right, we have been denied the opportunity for generations to build wealth, and so you combine that with constantly being told you're a dropout, constantly being told that you're more likely to go to jail than you are to go to college. Constantly being told this. If you keep telling someone, by default, you're going to start believing it. And so this goes back to mindset shift. And this is why, hear me, y'all, this is why it's so important for parents especially to make sure that we're breathing and speaking life into our children and we're getting them out of the poverty mindset. With all that being said, with all the struggles that we've had as a people, here's the blessing, is that we literally can fix this in one generation. One generation. And the reason why I know that, if you look at the data, 93% of millionaires today are first generation millionaires. I mean, like, despite all that stuff that happened, I love the story. I preached about it last Sabbath when I talked about Jacob. The Bible says even when Jacob had left, that the Lord said that I am with you. I am with you, even through all that stuff. And I believe it in my whole heart of people, my whole heart, that God is still with Black people. Like he has not forgotten us. And so, Check, I think the critical thing here is just first realizing, like, there's been systemic challenges, but we can literally fix this in one generation if we actually get intentional and we prioritize wealth building.
But isn't that what you were discussing when you said the mindset has to change, the renewed mental mindset? I'm sure at 100,000. Let's be practical, a little bit practical here. When you were talking about being in debt, $100,000, whatever the case may be, there has to be something. Can you give us something practical that you were doing before that you ain't doing now, and you're not going to get anybody to bring you back there? Just give us something.
Yeah. Of course. Listen, man. Like, Pat, for me, man, I fell in love with the perception of looking wealthy, but I was broke. You and I, we go back. When I was president of the Youth Federation, you could find me in my convertible Camaro. I had a six-figure job making good money, but your boy was broke. I had a negative net worth and had $100,000 student loan. And so
you look good though, Joe. I remember that. But
you couldn't tell me nothing. Like all my money was going towards things that was not making me wealthy. Like I was literally I was going out there going to restaurants. I was the guy paying all the bills.
Right.
I was traveling on credit cards. I just kept borrowing. People kept giving me money. Like
you never called me for that, Joe. I missed those meals.
Nah, Tally, that's
Nah, but seriously though, like Pat, like it was one of those things where I really struggled. I just never budget. Nobody taught me about the money. And so like the biggest thing I had to learn is there's literally two columns, y'all. There's either a liability or there's an asset.
Assets.
Assets go up over time. Liability goes down. And so when I started learning that, I also started realizing, well, wait a minute. When the seasons get rough, right? Have y'all noticed that like wealthy people start to emerge more when the economy goes down? You had people literally begging for stimulus checks. And then you had another series of people that were saying, oh, it's an opportunity to acquire more assets.
That's right.
When I made that shift, now everything outside of my basic needs, which was like driving, eating, and so forth, every dollar I spent, I was intentional. What column am I putting this in? When you start racking up assets and you start putting money over time, what God started doing is God literally started putting me in positions to win. The people who win are the ones who can strike fast. That's why I love the story of Joseph. Joseph literally gave the blueprint to Egypt. He said, yo, while there's a harvest, right? Everybody's eating and enjoying themselves. Once the stuff hit rock bottom, we attack. Warren Buffett, he says, be fearful when people are greedy, but be greedy when people are fearful. So when the market gets messed up, that's when you make the shift.
That's right.
But you got to be in position. A lot of us are never in position because when the economy is good and the consumer index is high, right? The confidence
we spend
is high,
everything.
we're wasting our money. And so I think that was the practical thing. I was like, and even told my wife, babe, before we got married, this was an integral part of our premarital counseling. I'm like, babe, we're not going to lose our money. Matter of fact, money is going to be the engine, and we're going to dream together. What do you want to do? Like, give me the craziest dream. And that's literally what we started shifting. So we started just keep adding to the asset column, and we stopped putting in the liability column. We got out of debt. Your boy started getting real estate. Got out of debt. Your boy started investing in stocks market. You got out of debt. Your boy started making other moves. And here's the crazy part. When you look at my net worth growth, it's not because I put millions of dollars in the market. No, it's because I own things that grew. And that's how we were able to grow our wealth.
I love
Wow.
it.
Powerful.
I like the statement about mindset because in preparing for the show, I came across an article about Black women being underemployed, underpaid. And there's this mindset of always wanting to get to the table to be in some kind of control or have some word to say about that. And it was interesting. This article says Black women building enterprise, instead of waiting to come to the table, they create their own table.
Right.
And so they're starting to start their own businesses.
Yeah.
And that also, there's a lot that ties into what the pandemic has done to our thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that, when it comes to Black women in this respect, because they're not getting a fair shake along with, Black men, and in comparison to whites, they've decided that, hey, I'm going to take control and I'm going to make my own table, and I don't have to come to someone else's table. So Black female entrepreneurship is starting to show signs.
Yeah, Chuck, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Joe. I liked when you were, saying to us to, build your assets and not your liabilities, because so often when you don't have anything or you have very little, when you do get money, what's the first thing you want to buy? Something, right? And so, and before, and look, even though we might get paid the less, right? They always sending us stuff to get credit cards, right? And then before you're charging, and then you're in great debt, and then it's hard to be on the winning side, because now everything that you get, you're trying to pay off, your little stuff that you did buy, and so you find yourself in sinking sand. So if you could just, educate people on really, because I learned, I did take that was Financial Peace. Dave Ramsey, Financial
Cut up
Peace
your credit
course,
card
right?
seminar.
How to, really get out of debt, snowball and get all those things, because that's when you start to build wealth. Because I remember when I was in college, like my friends, they laid low. My friends that were very light skinned, they laid low, right? And they were driving old cars, but they had good bank accounts. What do? We go out and buy BMWs, but we stay at our mama's house, and so it's hard for us. I just think it would be great if you just educate us on that.
Yeah, look, guys, here's the thing, man. And there's so much that goes into it. I think we as a people, we think so small. You like anyone in their 20s or even 30s at that, like you like there's a difference between kind of high living and balling. Like owning a BMW with interest rate of 25%, that's not balling. Like that's not the staple of, like, that's nothing that we should race to. Like when I talk about real wealth, I love the story in Chronicles where David says,
this guy going biblical at every. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
But here's the thing though, Pat. Like a lot of the stuff that I got comes from the Bible.
No, you're right. I'm teasing. Go ahead, flow with it.
What he's saying, Joe, is that if you're going to preach, you have to be poor first. That's a requirement. Please continue.
He is the seed of Abraham, right? Abraham.
Go back to Chronicles, man. I shouldn't have cut you off. Go ahead, man.
You're good. Now here's the thing. David just talks about the money he gave, that he committed to give it to the church. He says, I want to give over 3,000 talents of gold, 7,000 talents of silver. We always bypass that as Christians, right? Like we never understand. We always remember David as a shepherd boy who throws things the rock, but no one talks about David's wealth and him being a cheerful giver. Yo, this brother, when you equate that to today's dollar, he donated $4.2 billion. Like literally said, yo, here's cash. Let's go to the temple. We over here struggling just to become a millionaire, and we forgot that we serve a God who literally owns cattle on 1,000 hills. We forget that. We lost our identity. And so the point is, to your point, there's so many ways to look at this, right? It's, getting out of debt is just one critical milestone. But I can promise you, there's a difference between being debt-free and being financially free. And so you have to really start shifting and say, yo, what's going to get me to the point where I have the choice to do what I want, when I want, how I want to do it. And the only way you can do that in this country and in this world, the world rewards two kind of people. Actually combined. You have to innovate and own, right? If you can create something that's innovative, that's how you become Jeff Bezos. Like you're solving a big problem. If you're like me and say, yo, I'm not that like smart. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can't innovate like that. That's fine. There's a system in place that allows you to buy ownership in someone else who innovated. You see what I'm saying? So now I may not be able to be as smart as Zuckerberg, but I can own a share of his company, meaning when he grows, I grow, right?
That's right.
May not be as smart as Jeff Bezos, but I could buy some of his company. So when he grows, I grow.
Right.
When you start shifting to that ownership mind, the game really starts to change, man. And so the biggest thing always, man, is again getting towards that. And so make the listen. I'm not trying to just drive in a BMW. I'm trying to take my family first class in a private jet. Like that's the kind of wealth that I'm trying to live. You ain't gonna be getting there chasing some of these little, small things. And I think a lot of people just trying to run and get there fast, and they're only setting themselves up for failure.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So thank you so much, Joe, for laying out these truths. And a lot of people, before they heard you speak and share this hope that we can stop this cycle, we can stop with our next generation.
I like that.
And so there are some people who believe that we honestly have no hope, that unless reparations are given, that we will always be broke in this cycle of hopelessness. But thank you for infusing us with that hope today. So my next question for Joe and the panel is, what are some practical steps we all can take to live and leave a legacy?
Yeah, I'll take this as the expert. Nah, look, I think there's a couple of things. I think first you need to be aware of where you are. Like, you need to have an honest conversation with yourself, like straight up. I think that was the first thing I had to do. Like, I felt that that burden of pain. Like, I was paying, when I was $100,000, I was paying interest every month of about $3,000, interest only, every single month. So my paycheck, half of it was going to paying interest, and the other half was living. So I think the first thing, GP, is just acknowledging, like, I'm in a mess, and I need some help. The second thing is changing your mindset, which is then saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm a child of the king. God never ever wanted to be broke. And I'm going to change the financial trajectory of my family. Once you start shifting your mindset and start thinking big, even beyond assets, that's so huge. Number 3, get the information. Right? You need to tap into whatever information from someone who's actually doing what you're trying to get to, or who is where you're trying to get to. You need to lean into that person or into that program and learn. Lastly, you got to do the work. There's no way around it. And it's funny, man. I hear a lot of people saying, like, the government should give us money, which, by the way, I do think we deserve way more than money. You can never repay us back for what we did. But I'll tell you this, though. I guarantee you, and I'm a big boy, if somebody came and just did a magic wand and said, Joseph, you have six-pack abs, look like Idris Elba, in 2 years, that junk will be right back. You know why? Because I never endured the process. Like, I don't know.
Joe, you want me to show you how to do it?
Yeah, we're all laughing.
I don't know if in 2 years. I can show you right now, though.
We got to ask Natalie if that's true. I don't know.
Oh, man.
No, but I get where you're going with that. What you're saying is that if
you give it to them, and you lose it.
You still don't know what you're doing.
Still haven't learned.
But you got to go through the process. That's what I always tell people, man. Like, if you struggled during the pandemic, you need to embrace that feeling and make sure you never go back there again.
Joe, you said this way too quick. You said information. 2 things that I want you to hit us with really quick. 1, circle of friends.
Yep.
People you hang out with. Right? That's one. And the other one is information. You keep saying information. I want you to just break that down a little bit. When you start talking about information, where to get information. I'm not talking about WhatsApp either, okay?
Yeah. Right, so you hit on 2 good points. And I do think it's, and I'm glad you brought it up. One is your community. There's a thing that says your network is your net worth. If you keep hanging around with geezers who don't make money, who ain't doing nothing, and who's dragging you down,
you like that, right? Tally, geezers.
Nah, but you literally, I had to, and be honest with you, bro, I had to make shifts of people I hung around with, man.
It's true.
Especially when I started getting married and getting a family. Like, if you wasn't about ownership, if you wasn't about building, and you was still running around these streets, talking about, like, bottle, whatever you're doing, I'm like, that's not for me. Why? Because that stuff is pulling me back. And so you need to make some shifts. I'm not saying Don't talk to people. I'm not saying being standoffish, but trust me when I tell you, the people you hang around with, all right, think of them as that's what your net worth is going to look like. So start hanging out with people who made it. Now, I do want to talk about the information piece.
Well, okay, I'm leaving the Upset podcast right now.
Yeah.
What you trying to say? What, Charlie? What you trying
Yeah. Well, we're pre-geezers, so
the Hittites, the Hottites, the Geezerites, you know.
No, done, man. Look, I think the information, this goes back to like literally becoming a student of the game. So like for me, right, I put my whole life story in a program. I knew exactly what I went through. I knew it was hard life being Black. And I'm taking families through that right now. I'm taking them through the step. If you are someone who's battling with debt, struggling with debt, and you can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, you need to people need to lock into that program. If you're someone who says, Joe, I don't really struggle with debt, but I got a whole bunch of money that's sitting there dying, you need to lock in with me. Why? Because you're gonna end up like the parable who put his talent in the hole somewhere. You got to let your money work for you. So that's what I'm saying. The information, like you got to tap into people like myself or whomever you could trust, whatever that is, that has the information that can give you where to invest your money, understand the dynamics of how to invest, looking at real estate, right? Like how do you buy real estate? When's the right time to do it? Like those are the two avenues that I've used to build wealth. It's the most common used wealth, but there's other ways. You know, Chuck, you mentioned earlier about entrepreneurship. I remember growing up, if you were an entrepreneur, that means you were unemployed. That's all I meant. Like, yo, you're unemployed.
like Tommy or Martin.
You were frowned upon. Like, yo, you pretty much like a bum. Matter of fact, it'll cost you points if you start a date and try to look for a girl. Oh, what do you do for a living? I'm an entrepreneurship. Yeah, sorry, man. Like, you ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
Yo, that gotta stop, man. That's garbage. Why? Because ownership, right? Ownership is your ticket to wealth. Like you never ever. I don't care if you're a doctor. I love you. Anybody. Your quickest ticket to becoming extremely wealthy is entrepreneurship. We don't teach enough about it in our schools. We definitely don't teach enough about our homes, and we definitely don't teach enough in our churches. And so that's why I'm talking about the information. Like, where's the hub? And Pat, I'll tell you this one thing. I know we're going to talk about this. At least I hope we're going to talk about this. Historically, for Black people, the church always was the engine to advocate for Black people's rights and put us in a position to win. Unfortunately, we are losing bad when it comes to matters of money and when it comes to matters of sex. And not because we have the bad theology, it's because we're projecting our poverty mindset from the platform. And we're misrepresenting God as if God is someone of lack and not abundance.
You heard what he said?
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like and so we got to tap into those institutions that inspires Black people at scale. And I think that's where we start to kind of, get the right information and make a difference.
So Joe, I know we were talking about the information. I actually wanted to go back to that first step you mentioned when you said, look at your situation, because what I'm finding is that people look at their situation, but don't necessarily understand how bad their situation is. So they say, oh, I have a student loan. That's good, Dad. I need a loan to get a job, or I have a car loan. I need a car to get to my job. So, how do we help people understand when they're looking at their situation, if it's good or not? Because I think sometimes that's where we get messed up.
Yeah. Good question. So part of our program, for instance, we give folks assessments so they can understand exactly where they are and the recommendation. I think the best way to understand where you are is by literally doing a budget. Like and when I say a budget, literally map out all your expenses and map out your income. When the first time I did my budget, I realized that my expenses was more than my income, and I was using my credit card as an extension of my income. So the first thing you want to do is kind of map that piece out.
But how do you do that? Get an extra job? What do you do?
Well, we need to talk about the other elephant in the room is we need to get more income. Like if you're making $20,000 a year, $30,000, that ain't gonna cut it. Like you need to get more. Here's the cool thing about America, man. If you could solve a need in this country, you can make money, period. If you could hustle, if we actually just eat our pride, hustle.
Come on, New Jersey. Here come New Jersey.
You can Uber, you could deliver, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. The problem is I'm too good for it. I had a friend of mine, I'll leave him nameless. He was making a good job, he lost his job, and he couldn't get a job back at that scale, and he refused to work. So I ain't going back to work. He gave up 2 years of the workplace and eventually caved into a lower job. Here's my thing. Suck in your pride, man. You don't like we're talking about wealth and getting this thing right. The reality is we do need to increase our income, but I can almost assure you your expenses, the things you're spending on, are not important. Why? Because you probably can't even tell what you're spending it on. I had a friend of mine who was like, Joseph, man, just like me, they had a upside down budget. They were making an income just for illustrative purposes. They were making an income of $2,000. And it was like, Joseph, I make $2,000, but I'm struggling. I said, show me what your budget looks like. All right, my rent is about $1,700. I said, there goes your problem. She said, no, but I need extra bedrooms in case I have guests. And I have to make sure my daughter goes to swimming classes. And you don't need all that. You don't need all that. You need to be able to drastically reduce expenses and stop worrying about what people think. And I'll leave it on this, man. The reason why a lot of us go through this is because we're constantly thinking about what other people might think about us. Like that. We're so driven by, does Joseph got it? Why you think I was trying to fly high in this Camaro when I was broke? Because I was worried about what people would think. And the more you worry what people think and not worry about what's in your actual pocket or bank account, that's the biggest thing. So Tosh, I think the big thing I'm trying to take away is look, you gotta get a snapshot. You gotta step on the financial scale and start looking at that stuff. There ain't no such thing as anyone told you student loans are good debt lied to you. Right? I know a lot of people with student loan debt that are having a whole bunch of buyer's remorse, and they can't. There's no such thing as debt. Is you saying I'm giving ownership to somebody else?
Yeah.
Joseph, you mentioned that that mindset, and thinking a little more realistically about your wealth, your ownership, so forth and so on. One Black economist said that for Black folk in America, it's like, white folk go up on the up escalator. And what we do is we try to walk up the down escalator. It's going down. We're trying to go up, but it's going down and we can't keep up. And part of it is what you're saying about the mindset, to keep up with the Joneses and being led down the pike about student loans and it's going to take sacrifice too. Yeah. I mean, how many of us are willing to sacrifice?
That's it.
Okay. So you drive around with the beater for a while, sometimes people don't care how you get to the dinner party, just as long as you get there.
Yeah.
My brother used to tease me, when I visited him. He always had the, latest cars, very exotic cars. And he seen me pull up with an old Taurus. And he said, because he knew I worked for the church. He said, when are you going to stop doing? He said, when are you going to stop doing missionary work? Where are you going to make real money?
Missionary work, yeah.
Yeah. But he said, he looked at my old car and he says, man, why, that thing still runs? I said, yes, it does still run. He says, when are you going to get a new car? I said, when you pay for it.
May I ask a question?
But my point is, I got riddled about driving around an old car, and I still drive around old cars. But
me too.
But sometimes that pride, that thing kicks in. You know what? I'm just going to go to the dealer tomorrow. I'm going to pick me out a car, and I don't care. And I'm sure many of us have had stories about going to buy cars because, would you say, Joe, that even when you do something like go to buy a car and finance a car, isn't there some preparation and mindset that you should have before you even walk in the dealership?
Oh yeah. Chuck, it goes back to those columns I was saying before about liability versus asset. Make no mistake about it. A car falls into that liability category, right? So even now today, as much wealth as I got, your boy's riding around in a 2011 Honda Accord inherited by my wife that she bought into this marriage. Straight up. I can't fit kids in my Camaro, but I drive that thing with pride. Why? Because I look at a car as a point A to point B. I told my wife though, when we hit some of our financial milestones, sorry, I hit my son. When I hit my financial milestones, I'm gonna get my wife the G-Wagon. But ain't anytime soon. I can tell you that right now because we got other things to do. But yeah, man, you always got to be prepared. Again, you pour money into a liability, something that depreciates. As soon as your car leaves the lot, it goes down. If you're broke, you should not be thinking about a fancy car. Even if you think you're wealthy, you shouldn't be living in a fancy car. And let me be clear, in case people want to know what wealthy is, in America, to be considered wealthy, you have to have a net worth of $5 million. That's what they call wealthy.
Wow.
Did
you say 5 million?
5 mil. That's the new number. It used
So we're
to be
middle
2
class.
mil, 5 mil. If you want to be considered one of like the wealthy, like straight wealthy. And it varies in other countries. Like, you go to some other countries, 1 million is fine. Dubai is up to 10 million. So like, but their money's different over there. So you got to figure out like we got ways to go. That's the point I'm trying to make. We got ways.
Is there a level above wealthy?
Ultra wealthy. You know what I'm saying?
You're rich, yeah.
But here's the other kicker. I tell people all the time: retirement is not an age; it's a number.
Come on,
you got to figure out what that number is that's going to allow you to say, "I'm walking away from whatever you're doing." And unless you get to that number, you can't take your foot off the pedal. Period. You know what I'm saying? So
that's why you're 90 walking in, 90 years old and still working in Walmart.
Tally.
What did you say? What did you say, Marlena? You're 90 what?
I said that's why you see many of them, they're 90 years old and still working in Walmart because they can't retire,
Oh, okay. I thought you said walking in Walmart.
He took GP's baby.
Yeah.
The next generation.
Oh, that's his baby.
But very close looking, right? Very close looking.
They could be related. Who knows?
GP, can I ask that question now? Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead, Tally. Take the floor.
And this might be sensitive, and I don't want to assume. I'm looking at your last name, Joe, and it appears to come from immigrant stock. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Oh yeah. I'm a first generation.
I want to ask a question about native African American stock and immigrant stock. I've noticed that those who are from this country and who have lived in this country and who are descended from enslaved people in this country tend to have a different mindset when it comes to investing, and some might even use the word hustling. Can you speak to that just a little bit based upon what you have seen?
Dude, let me tell you something, man. I don't think you even understand how deep the question you bringing up is. One of the biggest weapons that white folk in the past have done has always been to rob us from our identity, to make us forget who we are and where we come from. And so as a result, the African American who really has a difficult time tracing back to where they're from originally, and find themselves in a situation where they're in a country that probably doesn't even care for them. And when they look at their history, they always see themselves as slaves, and maybe some contributions that they might have done, whether it be the creation of the peanut butter or whether it be the creation of lights. And we don't even do justice on what we've contributed to this country. Here's what people don't realize. When you look at the world economy and the world contributions we've made, Black people specifically, two things that I want to call out. One is that there's the impact we made is drastic compared to how we shaped the world. Think of Egypt. That was Black folks. The contributions we've made to mathematics, the contributions we've made to architect and design was enormous. Number two, philosophy. Some of the world's largest renowned philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, all those guys, they went to Africa to get their philosophical pedigree. Why do I bring all that? And I say it to where we are today. There's been a disconnect between Africans and African Americans. And I tell this to all my African counterparts. There is something called African privilege, where we come to this country and we benefit from the work that African Americans have gone through, and yet we tend to look at them as if they're less than. On the flip side, why? Because also stereotypes. We hear all the chatter that African Americans are lazy. They don't do anything. They're stuck in poverty, and we look down on them. On the flip side, African Americans tend to look at Africans as living in some type of hut, running on trees like monkeys. And so you have all this, and now you go into, I'm pulling this full circle. Now you go into the grind. Now you're going to build wealth, and we don't realize that together, man, we could do something special. And so, yes, the hustle is different, but all of us fall into the same trap. And this is what I'm trying to bring liberation to. Africans come here with a sense of community, which is awesome. They believe in lifting each other. but there's an over dependency on asking people to do things as opposed to them building stuff on their own. They don't think legacy and inheritance of leaving for children's children. They're thinking more, how can I consume, and leveraging the community to take advantage of yourself. Same thing for the African American. The African American who was told his whole life that, I'm not going to amount to nothing. All I've ever seen was struggle, struggle, struggle. When you see all of that stuff happening, it starts to mess up with our psyche. So yeah, the struggle's different, but the economics are staying. People are still struggling. Now I tell you right now, if you look at like even in Ivy League schools and so forth, it's more of African like descent than African Americans. But the reality is we all need each other. And so, there's maybe more of a hustle, but we all struggle with this financial thing. And we got to get this story right if we're going to actually advance as the people.
Thanks, man. And while we're there, I want to remind everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, whether you're from Jamaica or Haiti or Africa, or you were born on the shores of America, the only thing separating all of us is a boat stop. You were dropped off earlier or later somewhere else. Listen, we all came from the motherland, so we need each other. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, let's go together, y'all. So let's talk to some folks in the comments. There's some really good reactions and some comments and engagement, and we want to highlight a few questions and comments that are in our chat.
Yes, here's one, because we talked about student loan debt being, that's not good debt. So Others International is saying, well, it's kind of tough to avoid student loans when the cost of education continues to rise. How do we pay for it if we don't take out loans?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think number one, if you're a parent and your kid's young like Wilson, you need to start saving and preparing for it. Right? A lot of us wait until 16, 17, and we ask ourselves what happened. And by then it's too late. I think that's number one. Number two, I think, Tasha, we need to rethink college. I remember growing up, my dad said if you went to community college, that means you weren't smart enough to go to college. Like straight up. Like it was frowned upon. Oh, he couldn't make it. Montgomery Community College. That's a load of crap. The reality is no one cares where you start, they care where you end. Number two, I tell you right now, and I've been in the corporate world for 14 years, not one person ever asked me what college I went to. They care about your experience. That all it does is get you into the door. Stop avoiding public schools, like public state schools. Like, you need to like economically save your way, because going to these private schools, and since I'm from Jersey, I can call on some of them, the Seton Halls of the world, Fairleigh Dickinson, they're charging you $60,000 a year.
Princeton.
Princeton's a good school, but yes, you could say Princeton. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's expensive, but that's a good school.
GP, tell me if you're going to a top 10 school, even then I don't recommend it. Get some scholarships. I can tell you right now, I lived in Boston for a couple of years. Everything's like a small community. You could go to a state school in Boston, but you could be 2 miles away from Harvard. If I want to network with folks from Harvard, go to the cafeteria, bro. Start talking to people. Like you don't have to be in the institution necessarily. And so I just think rethinking college and going for affordable route. The last one, scholarships and grants. Every year, billions of dollars are left unused from scholarships because no one's applying for it. You need to go find it and apply for it. Treat it like a full-time job. You do all that and then work on campus while you're there. Your goal is to try to get out of college, without paying student loans debt. It could happen, y'all. It could really happen. You know what I'm saying? So those are some practical steps I would look to try to avoid student loan debt.
Joseph, I thought about what you said about, the entrepreneurship and getting out there and making it happen. I thought about that story. In fact, I saw his speech. Steve Jobs, he's not African-American, but he has a story to tell. He was asked to come back and speak at the graduation at Stanford, where he attended, but never graduated. And I thought that was odd. Here's a guy that didn't graduate from the school, but they asked him to come back. And yet he's the co-founder of Apple.
Yep.
And he basically said that he had more that he wanted to do than what Stanford was teaching him. And so he and Wozniak got together in a garage and built the first Apple computer. And the history, all right? A lot of us are carrying around Apple phones now.
Sure.
But I thought that was interesting that here was a person who said, I have something to offer to the world. And the backstory is that he was, and I'm not saying that, college is not good for you, but here was a man who said, I have more than what this education is giving me. I have drive to create something that I will own.
Correct.
Well, let's go back to what Joe said in the beginning. Joe, and I'd like you to reiterate that. where you were talking about. I'm saying when you reach a certain age.
Innovate in ownership. Innovate in ownership.
No, where Chuck, you just said, you know, when you reach 52, that's just it. It's just bad right there.
But I said what?
You just mentioned something that I want. Joe talked about it earlier, and I can't
rethink college or community college.
It'll come back, buddy.
Don't worry about it.
I'm a pro at this. It'll come back in a few minutes.
Just send me ginkgo.
There is a question from there's a question from a senior. So Pat, you made me think about. What about the senior? Is there any help for us starting late in life? You talked, Joe, about how some of us didn't have the information when they were younger. Now they realize it, but they're older. What do they do? Is there hope?
All right. So let me be clear. That senior is a senior in high school or a senior citizen, like in life?
I assuming senior citizen starting late in life. Yeah.
All right. Okay. If it's older, first of all, I almost can assure you, you're a lot younger than you think. If you're 60, you have about, if science does me right, another 30 plus years left to live. All right. You're still young. Oh yeah. Like,
so in other words, it's never too late, right?
It's never too late. So get to work. Get to work. I've changed my life in 7 years. 7 years. Like that's what happened for me. You could shift it. I think the other part too is it's one thing about you, but think about the next generation behind you. Like you need to be pouring in. Like, one of the best places to go to is go to a nursing home and talk to people. People will share with you like all the regrets they had in life. The big thing is while you're alive, man, you got to make sure you're pouring into next people and you have no regrets. And so that's kind of like my thought process. It's never too late. You're a lot younger than you think. I had people 30 years old like, oh my gosh, man, my life is waste. I'm like, waste? You only touched a third of your life. You got so much life left. Every year counts. Make it count. So, yes, got it. Yes, late 60s. That's fine. You're still young.
Young woman.
Joe, can you share techniques as to what to do if you are late in life or anything, if you don't have much income, what do you do?
Yeah. So look, there's not a step approach to this, right? I think you have to look at all these critical areas. And for us, we call it the 4 pillars of financial legacy. I think number one is you have to think, how are you looking at debt, right? Debt is literally the killer. The Bible says in John 10:10, the thief come but to steal, kill, and destroy, but I come that they may have life and they may have life more abundantly. Somebody's coming to steal your stuff. And so you need to make sure that you're putting protection and mechanisms around it and you're avoiding things that are stealing away from your wealth and your freedom. That's one. I think the other pillar is, again, wealth protection. Can you put a hedge around you, right? Have the right insurance coverage? Do you have an emergency fund? What's going to stop you from getting blocked and messed up? Because I can almost show you every single time the enemy is going to destroy you on a path. Number 3 is you have to let your money work for you. Let me be this clear. If there's anything you remember from Black Wealth, you are not going to save your money to wealth. Never happen. You put your money in the bank, it takes you 1,000 years to double it. Just to double it, 1,000 years, right? So by that time, hopefully God would have came and we'd be walking on the streets of gold. So you got to invest your money in the right places, in the stock market, in real estate. And dare I say, even become an entrepreneur. Start a business. God has birthed something in you that you're passionate about. Stop sitting on your talent and doing nothing with it. Convert that thing, make that thing work. I can almost promise you every time that your gift will make room for you. And then lastly is you gotta live a purpose life. You gotta leave a legacy. This is not I'm not here to just generate or create millionaires just to stunt on Instagram. I'm trying to build God's kingdom. And I know when God's people have resources and care about doing something, that's how we change the world. That's how we change the economy. So, those are just practical steps I think about it. Like, make sure you put yourself in a position to eliminate debt, right? There's popular, you can Google it, debt avalanche, debt snowball, wealth protection, get yourself the right life insurance policies, i.e. term, right? Start thinking about emergency funds and invest in the stock market and invest in real estate. For all those tools, you have to join FLA. You'll learn more about it. But that's kind of how I look at solving some of those things.
Joe, do we do ourselves a spiritual disservice when we sing songs like "I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold, and take this whole world and give me Jesus"?
We're about to go there, Tally, because there are a lot of folks who see poverty as piety. and they see wealth as wicked. So talk about the biblical miseducation of wealth that we often see even in our churches.
Yeah, so let me first start with the facts. God always designed, since the Garden of Eden, for his people to live in a life of abundance, not in lack, period. Adam and Eve had dominion over the world. Sin came in and started to rob that. But notice, even when you read scripture, God always tried to usher his people back to ownership and wealth. You see it in the life of Abraham, right? When he took him, made him wealthy. You see it in the life of Isaac. You see Jacob. He even told people, I'm going to take you to the promised land in which I have for you. That you will be the head and not the tail. That's what he told the people of Israel. He said, nations will come to you borrowing, and you're not. God has always wanted us to live a life of wealth. For some reason, the enemy, right, has managed to convince the institution that wealth is bad and poverty is good. Let me tell you guys straight up, that is a message from the devil himself.
Yeah.
Like you have a responsibility as a Christian to build wealth. When every time the Bible talks about money in the context of his people, it's always giving people abundance. And God gave you clarity in John 10. He said, let me tell you who I am. And let me tell you what the enemy does. He said, the thief is going to come. He's going to steal, kill, and destroy everything you've got. Here's how you know it's me. Because I've come that you may have life and you may have life more abundantly. But we as Christians, we over-spiritualize it and we automatically assume that heaven is the accumulation, meaning we suffer here so we can get to a promised land. When all the kingdom really is an extension of us we need to have heaven on earth. It's an extension of us getting there. So I think that's, I see it. And I've even now, man, I've talked to ministry leaders and I said, stop reading Malachi 3:8 every Sabbath, telling people that you've robbed the Lord. And you said, how have you robbed him? In tithe and offering. If you want to make money and you want the floodgates to open, pay your tithe. That is a misuse of the text, period. God loves a cheerful giver. And unless we change that narrative and stop weaponizing wealth.
Come on, Tally, I'm waiting.
We're locking ourselves.
Let me ask you that for someone who would challenge you, does that fall in the lane of prosperity gospel?
First of all, I serve a prosperous God. It's funny, man. I hear people say this all the time. Oh, avoid the prosperity. And I've had conversations with pastors about this. I'm like, so what message am I preaching? The poverty message? Like, is there such thing as a poverty message? Here's my beef, though, with people who use prosperity messages. A lot of time, though, and the reason why it has a bad rap is because ministers teach you about prosperity, but they never give you the tools on how to build wealth. They'll tell you God wants you to give abundance, fill up the offering plate. Like that's what it is. And so therefore you see a suffering church giving money and some bishop is making more money. And that I think is where things break down. But let me tell you something. I'm a fan of prosperity messaging. Like, meaning God wants us to prosper. Like, period. Like Pat, would you want your child not to be prosperous? Any parent here, do I want Wilson not to be prosperous?
No, I want mine to be.
Nah, come on, man.
Not if it tempts them to go to the devil.
No, but real
I
talk.
hear all the time, man.
Yeah, oftentimes as a church, we have told people what to do with the 10%, but we don't tell them how to manage the 90%, right? Like, we're not practical.
Or that the 90% belong to God also. But let me just say this, and you started this in the beginning. This is the reason why this should be like a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 part, right? Because the truth is that the church in the community was the one that was telling them, move north. It was the churches, it was the pastors that were there that were saying something is going on in Baltimore. I need to move your family up there. You need to move your family to Chicago. You need to get out of the South. That's what we had in our communities that we don't have anymore. It's flipped now. Now we want the people to give to the pastor. That's where the flip is. And if you could keep them poor, then of course you're going to be wealthy. So no, even though I don't consider you, Joseph, a prosperity elder, I understand it. If God wants us to be the head and not the tail, we need to be around the right information. That's what I learned from you today. We need to be around the right information. And this is what Ginkgo helped me with just now. The right information, because when I think her name was Styles, when she said, "Oh, we think to ourselves, is it too late?" No, the world always have a need. We're always going to be in a situation where we have a need. So move towards what that need is and profit from whatever that need is. Not to put people down, but that's what I heard from you, Joe. And I think I'm gonna go right there. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make a vaccine.
You can do it. You can do it
without medical knowledge. All right.
Look at the legacy.
Let's hope it's not made out of chicken.
Brother Joseph, with your wealth and knowledge, I understand that you are helping people now. So if some of us wanted that education, how do we contact? Like what's your site?
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah. So you're spot on. I've literally dedicated my life to helping our people. Like my goal is to touch every 47 million African American in America to give them the information that they need. And so we created. You go to www.financiallegacyacademy.org. There's a program designed for us. Like literally, I built that program for my story to help people go from, dang, I'm struggling to now we're gonna start our own foundation. Like now we're gonna send kids to Africa to learn about their history. Now we're gonna give scholarships to kids. Now we're gonna go to places that the church was too scared to go. Like that's the kind of mindset that you got to get to, and wealth can help you do that. And so that's in the program. And again, that program is not just about making money. That program is about finding your purpose and what God called you to do, and how you could really help the church and be the church and start making a difference in your community.
That's right. You heard it, folks. Financial Legacy Academy. It is an awesome program, and we want to encourage you to check it out and join in and get the information and community that you need. Because here's the truth. Opportunity does not go away. It just goes to someone else and comes back to you more expensive. And so get in while you can. Financial Legacy Academy is accessible. It's affordable, and it will change your life. I believe we have a short video promo for Financial Legacy Academy, and then we'll come back and wrap up this podcast episode.
We're paying all our bills on time, but one thing that we weren't doing is setting aside things that we could use for later.
I was a straight consumer, period. Just used money to spend.
I was a spendthrift. I was like very materialistic, whether it was cars or jewelry or things of that nature.
This class gave us a clear strategy. Financial Legacy brought a certain amount of consistency to what we were doing. Now we were doing things intentionally.
With this class, we've totally invested our money in the right places. We've saved our money. We're more on a budget.
We're in a better financial place.
What we took from it was able to really sit down, come up with a plan together, and really allow ourselves to take our incomes together and grow them.
I think it's really important for the Black community to have a financial legacy because we've literally built America from the ground up. I would definitely recommend this class for anyone who wants to build wealth or wants to invest but doesn't know where to start.
We definitely recommend Financial Legacy.
Because not only is it going to change your current situation, but it's going to help to change the situation for all them children that you got coming in the future.
That's right. Financial Legacy Academy. Thank you, Joseph, for joining us today on the Upset Podcast. We want to give you the opportunity to leave one final charge to all of our listeners and viewers.
Man had 2 children while the program was going on.
Yeah, look, man. I just want to see my people win. It's never too late. I think it's important to get the information. Our liberation as a people are tied to our economics. Nia believes so. Wilson believes so. This is my legacy, and I'm sharing my legacy with y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me today, man. Continue doing the good work. I appreciate y'all, man, and for the work y'all doing. And let's build, y'all.
Bless you, man.
Thanks, Joe. Excellent. Excellent.
Since we all bring babies on,
I know, right?
Hey, Joe, do you have a daughter, right?
Yeah, this is my daughter right here, and this is my son.
And you have a son. So, can I arrange something with your son for 30 years from now?
That's just so cold. So cold.
Hey. Yeah. Let my people talk to your people, man.
Listen, there's advantages to those premarital stuff, putting them together.
Yeah, well, before we turn this to Adventist Tinder or whatever that is,
I know, right? No,
This was good, y'all. This was good.
Yeah,
this was
is
good.
excellent.
I'm on
Excellent.
fire right now. I'm not
I'm
going
gonna call you Joe. I like it. I wanna
Call me first,
learn
Marlena.
something.
Call me first.
I'm calling you Joe.
Yeah.
Y'all got it. Y'all got it.
But no,
Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much. You know, this is what it's all about. It's Black History Month. We're not just celebrating our culture and our history, but we're trying to put things in place to help us grow, to help like you said, the next generation to do a little bit better than what we've done. And so, thank you so much for sharing this information. And we'll make sure that we put how to contact you in the chat and all of that, so those who are interested can follow up with you. But thank you so much. We've learned a lot. We've been tonight, guys. We've been part of the information. You know, he talked about the information.
Yes.
We were part of that, and so we have to keep these types of conversations going. And so we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for the comments once again. We always love having you. If there's something else you want us to talk about, you know how to reach us. There's the Upset Podcast. We're so glad to hear that you're learning. That's why we're here. We're here this is infotainment in some ways. And so we're happy that you guys are getting information that you find valuable. If there's other topics that you'd like to see us cover, of course, you can always email us upset@aecsda.com. I do want to take, was that too quick? I do want to take a minute, let you guys know what's coming up next week. We're continuing with our Black History emphasis this month. And so we're going to be talking about Black Adventist history. How do we come into this whole Adventist work, and what is our history? And we will have another special guest with us, Dr. Benjamin Baker. I think he's a doctor. But we look forward to you all joining us for that conversation as well next week. But for now, we know the Super Bowl is going on. I think somebody actually posted the score in here. I don't know how long ago was that. That was. Thank you, Daphne. That was the score. I don't know what it is now. But anyway, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Super Bowl night. Enjoy Valentine's Day or Love Day or whatever you call it tomorrow. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us at the Upset Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.